Welcome to Dakota Preparedness. Today's video is going to be about fire prevention and firefighting. And I do have some modest formal training in this subject. I attended the United States Navy's firefighting school when I served in the United States Navy. And also I've completed locally the Community Emergency Response Team training. Now, pervasively, I would say to you, have two general things in place. Number one is have property insurance. I've heard several of stories where the old home place had been long paid for, or people had paid off the mortgage on their house, and to save money, they didn't have property insurance. And then, of course, their house burned down. So what a tragedy. The second item that I would pervasively talk about is if you were in doubt about whether you should call 911 and have the fire department show up to your fire that is on the verge of getting out of control or out of control, don't hesitate. Call them. When I went through the CERT training, I was impressed with how talented they were. Their equipment is first class. Their training is first class, and you could not have a more motivated group of people. When they show up at an out-of-control fire, particularly if you're involved with that fire, they will be like equivalent to the U.S. Cavalry showing up. Now, I'm going to show two demos of firefighting equipment for the layman in this video. One is a suppressive blanket for fire, and the second one is a Kidde fire extinguisher. Today's model is equivalent to the 340, and wow, is it impressive. I will do a spoiler alert and tell you that after watching what that fire extinguisher did, I went out and not only replaced it, I bought two more of them, so we have three of them on site now. So let me show you the two demos, and then I want to talk about 10 key principles to help you prevent a fire. So we have our simulated bacon stovetop fire going, and we're going to take the secure Captain Fire blanket, pull tabs to release. So we have these, pull those, out it comes, fold it out, pretty good size. And we're just going to ease it over the fire. It smothered the fire. I still see some flames in there. And the fire is out. Okay, we have the simulated grease fire going now, and we're going to use the Kidde fire extinguisher. Now this extinguisher is warranted for 6 years. It's 7.5 years old. Just testing it to see how long it will provide protection. So it emptied in about 20 Second, now my wife and I, we live in the middle of a forest. And so what can you do to prevent a forest fire and at least give your cabin some chance of surviving? One is ensure a defensible space. Have at least 100 feet around your buildings that are clear of leaves, branches, debris, anything that can be catch fire that you can remove. Make sure you mow your yard. Number 2, concerning roofs and gutters, once again, have debris and leaves removed. And number 3 is have an evacuation plan. A forest fire can be so massive, you are not going to be able to defend your cabin. The fire department may not be able to defend your cabin. So be prepared to have an emergency evacuation plan. Now, I trust the local emergency management system in my county and the police and the fire department. If any 3 of them told us to evacuate, we're gone. I mean, we're gone within half the time space that they've allotted you to evacuate. Do not mess around. Get out of the X. Get out of the danger area. And have a plan B. Now, we have 1 mile of road that we have to travel, and then at least another 2 miles to get to a totally safe place. So that's plan A. Now, if it doesn't work, our plan B is to go down to a 5-acre pond and walk out on the fishing dock. And if need be, hop into the water where it will be up to your neck in water. And I think you'd be reasonably safe there, even in a massive forest fire. Now, I'm talking about a normal fire, not California. Those things can go like the ground was covered with gasoline. One time I was at Camp Pendleton, and a young Marine officer threw out a flare, which promptly set the grass on fire. And before it was over, it took 300 of us using entrenchment tools to put that fire out. And it probably was a good hour that we were fighting the fire. And it burned a good 10 acres. So don't mess around. Get out of the way of a forest fire if need be. Don't worry about your property. Worry about your life. Now, another source of a life-threatening and devastating fire to personal property would be that of a house fire. So, have at every level of your house a smoke and fire alarm. The alarm that goes off might be just a pain in the butt when you're cooking something and you let it smoke up too much. But in a real deal, it can be a lifesaver. So have a smoke and fire alarm on every level of your house. 5 is ensure that you have cooking safety. Be there while you're cooking. Don't go off and watch TV or go into another room to read a book. Be there. Have no fuel sources on the stovetop. No paper towels. No oven mitts. Keep your stovetop clear of any flammable material. Next, on a regular basis, examine your extension cords. Make sure they're not frayed or coming apart. And if they are, replace them. They can be a source of a fire. This is particularly true of extension cords on appliances. Replace the entire appliance if you have to. Don't start a fire. And don't overload your wall sockets. That's another source of potential fires. Number 7, with candles. Some people love candles. That's great. But similar to the stovetop, do not leave them unattended. If a candle is lit, you're in the room, or a responsible person is in the room. And if you leave the room and it's going to be unattended, extinguish the candle fire. Now, have the proper equipment to fight a fire that you are competent enough to put out. So you want a fire extinguisher and a fire suppressant blanket. Now, from these 2 demos, As I've mentioned, we now have 3 of the Kidde fire extinguishers. It ran for about 20 seconds, and it could have put out a fire 50 to 100 times the size that I demonstrated with. The fire suppression blanket, it seems to me, is kind of a niche thing. Its advantages, it's so simple, and the niche is perhaps a stovetop fire of 1 or 2 pans, where you can get it covered and have it covered in such a manner that it will extinguish any oxygen involved. And third, have an evacuation plan for your house. So we have 3 paths out of our house, and we all know the plan. Get out of the first one that you can, and anyone responsible to get themselves out should do so. And if they can grab a pet or so to get them out, that would be fine too. But don't risk your life for your property. Now remember, what kills most people is the smoke inhalation and the toxic fumes. So quickly evacuate and stay low. If you need to, drop to the floor and do a military low crawl to the exit door, and once out, keep going. Property can be replaced, life cannot. Now, in an emergency, any number of them could result in a fire. So hopefully, I think you'll agree with me that these principles and these equipment can apply in a number of emergency preparedness situations. If you found this video helpful, please click like and subscribe. It helps the channel and it helps the community. Be prepared.